Hi, everybody. Welcome to Changeling the Lost, Cruel Summer. This is a actual play of a Changeling the Lost powered by the Apocalypse hack designed by the Gauntlet's own Lowell Francis. We'll be playing here as part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which is a bunch of actual plays put on by the Gauntlet community and featuring members of the Gauntlet community. We have a game tonight where we will be playing a version of Changeling, and we'll be operating under the rules and aegis of the Gauntlet community, which is which you can find out about at gauntlet-rpg.com. We'll be abiding by the Gauntlet Community Code of Conduct, which is defined on that same site, and we will be using safety tools, which are standard for the Gauntlet community. We'll be using, in particular for this session, lines and veils, wishes for things that we really want to see, the X card if something comes up unexpectedly that we need to deal with, and as always, the open table policy, so that if anyone needs to take a break, get up, walk around, anything comes up at all for any reason, anybody can step up, walk away. That includes every player. That also includes me as the facilitator, and so that is always, those policies are there to help us as a group to enjoy the game and not have to deal with anything that makes the game less fun for anybody. Now, first I'll go around the table with some introductions, and I'll start. My name is Chris Newton. I'll be the facilitator for this particular game. I go by he, him pronouns, and I am just a random old comic book nerd / gaming nerd. So I don't have any projects for you guys to know about, but some of these other folks actually might have some stuff that you might enjoy knowing about. So I will start circling around, and I'll sort of go clockwise on my screen, which will make no sense to anybody. So clockwise for me, it goes to Alexi. Alexi, could you introduce yourself and give us a heads up on anything you'd like us to know?
Absolutely. So I'm Alexi Sargent, he, him. You can follow all my gaming endeavors online at Cloven Pine Games. So check out Cloven Pine Games on Twitter and my store on itch.io, where I've got a number of Cloven Pine Games, PDFs available of games that I have designed. I'm happy to be here playing Changeling the Lost, the PbtA hack.
Thanks, Alexi. Leah. Could you tell us about you and any projects you have going that you'd like us to know about?
Yeah, I'm Leah. I'm married to Alexi, and my biggest ongoing project right now is the 4-month-old who's on my lap, and that's why mostly you won't see me on video for this game because she's very hungry. Her ongoing project is getting bigger.
Yeah, I'm sure she's excellent at that. See, next around my screen will be Stephen. Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Stephen, and I use the pronouns he, him. And, I play Gauntlet games, and that's really about it. I don't have any projects or anything like that. So, yeah.
And last but certainly not least, just because of the way my clock ticks around my screen, Will, tell us about yourself and anything you'd like us to know.
Sure. Hi, my name is Will. I've been with the Gauntlet for, I'd say, about 9 months now. My Twitter handle is @WMSkyfall. I am a software engineer who's sort of trying to cross-class into voiceovers, but it's all sort of, irons in the fire right now. No projects to speak of, but stay tuned. My pronouns are he, him.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay. I'll kind of go into the game that we'll be playing and my general default presumptions about kind of where things will go. This may change based on what the players indicate that they're interested in and where the characters take us, because we don't really know where all of these characters' relationships are going to lead us as far as our content and things that we'll go into. Content-wise, Changeling is a game about personal and fantastical horror, travails, and sometimes even redemption, involving survivors of terrible abuse and how they find community and sometimes even family amongst their fellow refugees from the realms of fairy. These changelings will have to balance their face-seemings with mortal lives that they're either trying to rebuild or create entirely out of whole cloth after their escape from their keepers, who are their fairy captors. the basic aim is to explore the interplay between the needs of the changeling community, the political obligations of the changelings to their courts and their fellow changelings, and the personal agendas of all of these people, you know, changeling and otherwise maybe, that are involved in all of this stuff while they confront the weird things that tend to happen when groups of changelings are around. Tone-wise, this is going to be ultimately a question we'll settle through through our discussions. But the setting itself, as originally conceived, presumes a fairly dark tone as these changelings are trying to build mortal and magical lives side by side, while having to worry about threats from both mundane and mortal sources as well as magical sources, including creatures from the Hedge, which is the mysterious, like, in-between world between the realm of Earth and the realm of Fairy, as well as even changelings who are, for some reason, still loyal to the terrible Fae who kept them captive and who are trying to lure their fellow changelings back into the Keeper's clutches. And maybe even if things are terrible enough, maybe one of the Keepers themselves might appear. As far as subject matter goes, this is dark urban fantasy, but for a lot of this stuff, we will have a lot of impact from our lines and veils and other safety tools. The basic changeling setup tends to involve a lot of, like, courtly politics amongst the seasonal courts, like summer doesn't like winter, or spring really has it in for fall, that sort of stuff. And the various individuals and their personal drama that is always accentuated and made worse by all the supernatural stuff that's involved in all those political machinations. So that's kind of the basics of the default setting for a changeling. Now, each changeling has a basic type, which is represented by their playbook, and they also have a subtype, which is basically like a smaller, a more immediately identifiable part about them. So, like, for instance, you have an elemental fae, and you might have the elemental covers multiple, like, manifestations of fae that are based, that have changelings that have been tied to an element of some sort. You have candlelight fae. You might have a statue fae who's literally half or more a statue. You could have someone who's basically a puff of smoke in their natural fae form, but still appears as maybe a skinny or willowy human person when a regular human is looking at them. All of the changelings have their true fae self, which is what other changelings and other supernatural creatures often see, and they have a mortal mask, which is the thing that the regular people see when they look at them. So we're going to kind of go around the table here, and I'll kind of go in the same route I did just to keep it consistent, if folks are comfortable with that, and let folks introduce their characters based on a couple of criteria. We want to know about your seeming, your base playbook type, your kith, which is your subtype, like what, if you're a beast, what kind of beast are you? What do you look like? Your mien, which is your fae appearance in changeling terminology, your mask, which is how you appear to mortals, and we'll kind of go around with that. And I'll also want to know, and this will be on your character keepers if you look over to, if I remember right, the most right hand column, it will ask you what your durance was, basically where you underwent your durance, what terrible fairy realm were you a prisoner in. And I will also ask you a couple of questions about that. Mostly, what was your assigned function in your keeper's little world? Like, if your keeper made you into a guy who looks like a humanoid version of a werewolf, like, what did you do? Like, were you a hunting hound? Were you a monster used to scare other changelings into doing what they're supposed to do? Were you kept as a house pet for your keeper's amusement? Like, what was the terrible setup that your keeper had? And then I will ask if you have any particular memories of your keeper? Like, do you remember a name that they used? Do you remember a habit? Do you remember a particular physical characteristic that they typically had? That sort of thing. After we get done with the first round of the introductions of your characters, we will get into things like entanglements and debts, which will deal with, regular entanglements, which is your personal interrelationships amongst the PCs and the various NPCs in this place. And then if each character wants to, you can be involved in a romantic entanglement in addition to your regular entanglements. So we will take a look at that. So first, I will go around clockwise as before. Alexi, would you be comfortable starting us off with telling us about your character, please?
Sure thing. So I am playing Thistledown Susurrus, aka Timothy Russ. I have the Beast Seeming, affiliated with the Autumn Court, and the Kith is Skitterskulk. So I'm a Skitterskulk beast of the Autumn Court. And yeah, I think that Timothy, when he was but a mortal, was an art thief notorious for hitting private art collections. And one day he got a lead that turned out to be a terrible trap set by someone not of this world. And so he tried to steal this painting and was himself stolen by the Fae, ended up serving endurance in the Lodge of the Scarlet Pursuers, where he was turned into a fox-like being, and repeatedly hunted and repeatedly killed and resurrected for the amusement of the hunting Fae of that lodge. He remembers the keeper is named Lady Rubia, the leader of this Fae hunt, and somehow he has escaped from that. Perhaps learning enough of the stealth of the fox to slip free, and so he's back here in the in the human world, but still betwixt and between, as all changelings are. The other questions it has is, how did you preserve the last shreds of your humanity? Well, it's through meticulous grooming. His philosophy is, they can make me a beast, but they can't make me bestial. So his mask, the human form that he wears, is a dapper, tweedy redhead with a well-groomed beard, and his mane that other changeling and Fae will see him as is furtive, tawny, and vulpine. Essentially a humanoid fox. As the beast, he has a little territory. I think his own den may be hidden in a little like city park, but it's around the it's bordering a number of high-end apartments. The sort of places that might have private art collections. And the other question is, what won't you do to keep your motley mate safe? Which is a really fascinating one. And I was going to go ahead and say the answer is there's rumors of a painting that a keeper has held on to, allowing that keeper to keep an eye on a changeling. But even though it's my specialty, I have sworn I won't go back to Arcadia to steal this painting. Anything else you should answer, Chris?
Oh gosh, let's see. So the one thing he has said that he will not do is try to get back into Arcadia or the realm
steal
of
this
fairy.
painting. Yes.
Okay. Now, is it a? He definitely doesn't want to go back to Arcadia to steal the painting. Like, is it a more general reluctance? Like, if he had another reason to go to Arcadia, would he still go, or is it just like he doesn't want to go to Arcadia, not even for that painting?
Chris, nobody wants to go to Arcadia.
Yes, gotcha.
For us, it's a bad place.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Now, the way you described it, and I just want to make sure I'm having the right picture in my head. This is like an old, like aristocratic English hunting lodge. Is kind of the Fae world that you were trapped in.
Yeah, it's like the Fae have seen depictions of English fox hunting and then have kind of imitated it in their relatively cruel relatively arch way, right? So it's like everything's dialed up to 11, and the prey are human changelings becoming fox-like beasts that are repeatedly hunted by the wild hunt of Fae.
Okay, so it's a very stylish wild hunt sort of situation that
Oh yes,
you were continually subjected to.
Very
Okay.
refined.
Okay. Now, as far as you remember, are there any other changelings in this locality? Not necessarily in the Motley now, but in the locality that you're in that you remember from your Durance?
Oh, that's fascinating and a great question. Let me peek at the NPCs list.
If you want me to come back to you about that and give you a few minutes to think it over as you look through that big list, that's cool, because we can definitely kind of swing back around to pick up some of these lingering threads, and I think that would be cool.
Yeah, if you don't mind coming back to me, I'll think about that.
Okay, Leah, would you be comfortable going ahead and telling us about your character now, or does the little one have you occupied?
Oh no, I can do both. So my character is Silicate Switchback from the Autumn Court, whose kith is Fate Maker. And I've really taken my inspiration from this character, who's a wizened, which means she's practiced perfection as a revolutionary. From the kind of moves that were available in this playbook. So let's talk about that concept for a second, and then go to the questions, or blend them together a little. I picked the Durance of the House of Numbers, and since my two moves are about always having a trigger for trying to check if places have the resources to destroy them, and conflicting with machines and their spirits. I see the House of Numbers in my character as someone who is made over in order to interfere with human technology, and particularly computers. So kind of blending the magic science stuff here, but for the Fae, that there's a certain degree of curiosity, threateningness, hard to say, about the intense regimental nature of human technology. And my changeling was made over as a way to access and destabilize what the Fae might not be able to, or might not want to touch directly themselves.
That's interesting. Now, do you think your keeper was fascinated by technology or afraid of it? Like, what vibe do you think you walked away with? It may or may not be true, but what vibe did you leave your Durance with about how your keeper felt about the technology they designed you to interface with?
Yeah, I think my keeper was, always slightly more into it than any other Fae, who's like seen this more as a defensive or cautious project. And possibly pushing some of the experiments, and thus me, further than was encouraged even by other true Fae, in order to satisfy his own curiosity.
Okay. Do you remember anything in particular about your keeper, like any mannerisms, any elements of appearance that was consistent, anything like that?
Let's go with you could always smell honeysuckle before you could see him.
Okay. Now, I was looking at some of the other questions related to your typical wizened. How do you think you were, or if you remember, because one option is that you may not remember how this happened, but how did your keeper trick you or trap you or kidnap you to get you into the House of Numbers?
I think I think this will be funny. Okay, I'm going to blend who are you and how were you taken. Where I'm going to say that prior to the kidnapping, that my character was a dancer, and that the keeper who took me was the Fae's understanding of technology is very different than ours. And rather than grabbing a computer programmer of some kind, they felt like the right kind of interface they needed was much more like dance. So showed up as some kind of glamored seeming, choreographer, and eventually, took me unexpectedly.
Okay. So your keeper, when they designed you to interface with technology, what form does that usually take for you? Like, did he design your technological interface to work with your dance? So does it look like when you are interfacing with technology, like, are you doing some sort of fluid dance-like movement? Does it look like you're conducting an orchestra? Or is this like, if you're typing something on a keyboard, do your fingers have this sort of, rhythm that seems impossible based on what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of very like modern dance inspired, like more taking different stances, like very strongly. But I think in part of the physical changes, I've picked as my mean rumpled, twitching, and wide-eyed. And I think, in my true form, having been changed by the Durance, instead of normal veins, I have electrical wire.
And are the electrical wires visible? Like you can kind of see them moving in and out of the skin at various points?
Well, I think the thing is they look, like the way it is when you can see someone's veins through their skin a bit, except there's more colors than there should be. But I'd have to be injured to like pin down what's wrong with them.
Okay. Are they occasionally like luminescent, like you'd see on like a LED readout or something like that?
Not usually, not unless things have gone very badly.
Okay, so if we see glowing bits on your skin, that's bad.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let me check here and see if I have any other questions that I might need to be illuminated.
I think what rule is most important to you. I think
Yes.
Insofar as she was remade, by this experience, the thing that has now become internal to her is that predictability is the worst kind of slavery.
So
your rule is don't be predictable.
And free other people from the burden of predictability.
So I'm getting the vibe that your character definitely did not go into like software design or anything like that. Nothing where you would be in an office. Like
no.
when you came back from your Durance, that is not the job you went for.
No, definitely not. Honestly, like I feel like I have a good job. It's just a garbage woman, right? But this like takes her into offices at night when she can, help by, interfacing with the computers in ways she thinks is aesthetically desirable. And, almost certainly none of the people using them think is good. But you go a lot of interesting places and you pour through what people otherwise would have discarded and repurpose it for your own purpose.
Okay, so she's like when she does need to work, she's like a nighttime surface maintenance contractor type person. She's going into offices and cleaning them up and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Garbage out, garbage in, you might say.
Hey, that sounds like a really interesting way to approach that. I like it. Okay. Let's see. I think that covers everything I might have hit. Oh, one more thing. When you came back, do you remember about anything more about who you were other than that maybe you were a dancer? Like how much memory of your pre-Durance life do you still have?
I think not a lot. And I think, insofar as she was a dancer, sometimes it's confusing for her about which things she might remember are things about her or things about parts she danced.
Okay. So the memories are a little patchy, like they're there, but it's fuzzy as to where your position is in the memory.
Yeah, and just a very fuzzed out sense of self.
Got you. Yeah, I imagine being able to directly interface mentally with computer systems in any way would probably give you that sort of dissociative.
Yeah, it does not help, definitely. But, it's a little easier to remember by like chatting with other changelings or observing humans that, some experiences are not ones any human has.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. We'll come back around. I may have some other follow-up questions for you later and kind of see where things go. And we'll sort of move on for the character for the character introductions, around to Stephen. Stephen, are you ready to give us the heads up on your character?
Certainly am. So tonight I'll be playing Dupul Morning, who is using the Elemental playbook. His mask name is Shiloh Mills, and he uses the pronouns he, him. He is of the Spring Court and of the Kith Air Touched. He is an elemental of Petrichor, which is the smell and scent and feeling you get just before it rains. And he is the cusp of possibilities and anticipation. He is that sense. Some of the things that he can do, some of his moves are being able to move somewhere within a line of sight, like a blur once per scene. And I also have pocketing luck, which at the beginning of a session, I roll 2d6, and if it's a 6-, you store it, and if it's higher than that, I store it and can swap it out. And let's see, other questions are, how was I taken? I was a farmer about 120 years ago working in the fields, and at the cusp of dawn, I was trying to loosen a rock that was in the fields, and it was a trap. And whenever the rock pulled loose, beneath it was Arcadia, and I was pulled forth. Next question is, where did I serve? I served in the sands of Wakelight. I was there basically to set the mood and to show off the other changelings that were present. My keeper was very vain, and she often showed me and her other possessions, the other pieces that she had in her collection, off. And I was there as a sense of feeling. How did I escape from the hedge? I escaped with someone else who needed me in order to escape. They needed that possibility to exist. I hadn't really considered escaping from the hedge. The way I imagine this is that my keeper made sure everyone was happy. And if you weren't happy, you were happy. And it was kind of a forceful event that you had to be happy with everything. And therefore, it hadn't really been considered that I needed to leave or that it would be better for me if I left. Once another changeling brought it up, it opened up a lot of possibilities to me, and that's how I got back. What don't I understand from the world that exists today? I don't understand all the darkness and hopelessness that exists. It seems like there's a lot of depression and just overall morose that has brought about the world and that everybody seems to walk around all the time with. And that doesn't make sense. Why, every day is a new beginning. What do I hear whenever I close my eyes and I just listen? I feel it tingle along my fingertips, almost like a little bit of electricity, and I hear a slow rushing like the wave of the ocean that just gets louder and louder. And as I close my eyes, I see settling darkness interspersed with bursts of light.
Okay. Oh gosh, let's see. What kind of follow-ups do I have for that? I think you've definitely gone through like all of the basic things, I think, to give us the kind of picture of where you're coming from. Like when you say you have a hard time understanding like the sort of the sort of sadness that you see around you, is that a function of your inherent like natural inclination to see possibility? But your vision skews toward the potential as opposed to the actual, and that's why it's harder for you to note to deal with and understand like sadness or depression or that sort of thing.
I think that before I went to Arcadia, I understood balance and how, there were good times and there were bad times. In Arcadia, however, I think part of that was stripped from me. So whenever I came back, it seems like it was my job there, and I'm just getting used to it was my job there to make sure that everyone felt happy and things were very good. And coming back to the real world, there's a darkness that I'm still getting adjusted to. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. Now, what do you think now that now that you're back in the mortal world? Like, what do you do to maintain your sort of like your mask? Like, what sort of job do you think, given your issues with understanding that part of the world, what sort of job do you think Dupool has leaned toward as far as trying to maintain a mortal side?
So I think that as a changeling in his mean, Thistledown had mentioned that there was a park nearby where he lived, and I think Dupool is is there in the mornings as kind of the dew that forms on the grass in the park and the sunlight that comes up, and that's where that's the point in time that he lives. As his mask, I think he works a construction job, so he goes out and he builds uh condos and houses and does renovation work.
I could definitely see how he could be at least a very good renovation salesman. Because he could always, like, if you've ever watched a home improvement show, he could always tell people, this is how this could look. Like, here's this diagram of how I can make this place over. That sort of thing. Is that sort of the direction he leans in?
I think that he's not the salesman. He's the hook that the salesman brings in. So he says, "Oh, I want you to talk to my guy about." The salesman says, "I want you to talk to my guy about what's possible to do here." And he comes in and he says, "This is my vision. This is where we will put like a window, and we'll open this space up, and we'll put a skylight here so that you have a lot of natural light coming in, and all of that kind of thing to really sell the client on it."
Okay. Do you think if that's kind of the setup you see Dupool working in,
Mhm.
is the salesman another changeling that you're working with, or is it a mortal whose company you've just gotten a position at? Do you think?
I think it'd be more interesting if it was a changeling.
Okay. If you want to think about who that could be, if you want to pick somebody off the NPCs list, or if you want to make somebody up, feel free to do that, and
Yeah.
I'll give you a chance to do that, and we'll kind of come back around to sort of pick up some of the dangling threads I've sort of left here. If you're comfortable with me coming back around again in a minute or two.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Okay. All right. Will, you have your character ready to give us a capsule version of?
Well, more or less. I'm basically frantically laying track ahead of the train here, but I think I can get started.
Okay.
My character goes by the sobriquet of Immortal Jane. Her given name, her pronouns are she, her. She, in her Fae form, she looks like a marble statue, with veins of silver, marbling and decorative veins of metal tracing along her features. She moves very slowly. Is generally stately in her Fae presentation and composed, and somewhat imperious. In her mortal form, she's going by the name Runi Cavella, and she works as a bartender. She's got a buzz cut. She's the veins of marble in her mane have turned into a flourish of tattoos, and she's a lot more animated in her mortal form than in her mane. But she's still very precise about her actions. She seems to be always in motion in a way that her mane is not. She belongs to the court of winter. I'm going to say that when she was an athlete growing up she was an athlete and a star of the swim team. And when she was on vacation out to her cousin's island, they had a cottage and they had a cabin in the middle of a lake. And she went out for a swim on a full moon night, and the water just pulled her away. It was like some darkness in the water just sort of pulled her down, and then she found herself in her durance in the Starlit Grotto, which was a sort of oracular garden of marble columns and laid out paths and fountains and a creek surrounded by an endless pine forest, always at night. And her keeper, whom I have not figured out yet, basically admired her physicality and wanted her to serve as decoration in this grotto, and also to be a sort of secret keeper and record keeper. And so she was made still and forced to observe the comings and goings and dealings of the grotto. Now that she is back in, although she found that experience and the captivity of that experience to be grotesque, there was a certain thrill about being perceived as invisible and being privy to all of these secrets and secret dealings and wishes and quiet fears that creatures uttered in the Starlit Grotto, as if she were not present. And that core of being a receptacle for information and a receptacle for people's worries is something that she's tried to cultivate when she's back in the real world. In the mortal world, she serves as counselor when she can for at-risk youth in the community. She is known in the Winter Court as a vault of secrets and a confessor. And in fact, you can unburden yourself to her and she will take the sting of those sorrowed memories away. Consensually, of course. And so she sort of carved out this space for her as being a person that you can unburden yourself to. And quietly, she's sort of thrilled to be collecting this information. It makes her feel powerful. It makes her feel like she's gripping something back from the situation that claimed her. So I guess in addition to, I guess what flavor of emotion feeds your hunger for glamour, there's a certain aside from her being Winter Court and being a rather reserved person, there is a certain fierce pride in being able to make something of this life that she's wound up in. So just a sort of quiet, a quiet victorious pride in being this character that other people are entrusting with these secrets.
Now, what, and this is kind of a follow-up question to that. What the question on your intro questions about flavor of emotion, I'm also kind of interested in a different reading of that question, which is what type of emotion do you choose when you have a choice? What type of emotion do you choose to harvest when you harvest for glamour? Like, what emotions do you seek out that kind of give you the feeling that you want? Like, do you go for, as Winter Court, like their default is sorrow, that they like different aspects of sorrow, but that may not be true for you as far as what your favorite is. What would you say that your favorite emotion would be to harvest from mortals to recharge your glamour batteries?
Sorrow, regret, guilt.
Happy stuff.
Quite. I mean, she encourages people to unburden themselves to her, mortal or fey, and that catharsis of someone unburdening themselves on that degree of sorrow sort of drives her.
Okay, so it's that little tingle, like somebody just being sad in the same room with her, that's not enough. But them sort of releasing that font, basically, letting loose the reasons behind it, and that little feeling they get from release is kind of where things are at for Jane.
Yeah, that sense of trust, that sense of trust and vulnerability that's being shared.
Okay. All right. Does Jane have an ambition, a greater than kind of just, continuing this life that she's rebuilt since she got back from the Starlit Grotto? Like, does she have anything she's actively pursuing? Like, does she seek a higher position in the Winter Court? Does she want to do something else, like rebuild what would be perceived as a highly successful mortal life? Like, is there some ambition that Jane has that might be guiding her right now? You don't have to have one. That's one of the possible questions here to kind of iron things out a little.
She has her eye on court politics. She hasn't weaponized. She very rarely weaponizes the secrets that people are entrusting to her, or the emotions that people are entrusting to her. But she is collecting ammunition.
Got you. And and certainly she doesn't want to start using those until she absolutely needs to, because once people know you're using those secrets, then that might stop sharing them, right?
Exactly. And
Okay.
and she wants to be in a position where she is trusted and a pillar of the Winter Court.
Okay. All right. And so let's see. Let's see if I have any other questions that come to my mind here. All right. I don't think I have any other right now. You've kind of hit most of the buttons, but I might have another follow-up question or two when we come back around here, because we're about to go back around and sort of pick up some of these things that I've asked for follow-up on. So we're going to go around to Alexi to see what his choice was relating to that NPC.
Yeah, so I think that Wyndham Wales, the toll taker ogre, was also present at my durance. That he was working as maybe a butler at the lodge of the Scarlet Pursuers, and so we worked together to escape, and so I owe him for his help with that.
Okay, that seems reasonable. And we'll come back around and start getting into like the rivals and such as that in just a moment. Leah, did you have any follow up on what we discussed with Silicate Switchback? Like, I know you mentioned in the chat that she does have a mortal name, Sally Catesby.
Yes, I tried to translate silicate as directly as possible into both a first and last name.
I love the comic book logic of that. That's awesome. your secret name, be almost the same as your mortal name. I like that.
Yeah.
Was there anything you'd like to add to kind of give us a bigger picture of Silicate? Like, do they want a do they have a strong court affiliation? Do you think? Are they interested in that sort of changeling life, or are they just sort of they're there in the court, but they're not looking to jump over anybody's shoulders or anything like that?
I think kind of quite the opposite of being a little alienated from the court, though not, in a terrible way, but certainly not ambitious, and, very betwixt and between about having been made to, interface with something the Fae themselves don't use or like, leaves her always feeling a little on the outs, even with other changelings.
But apparently there's one Fae that really likes them.
Yeah.
We know that now. And and your keeper smells vaguely of honeysuckle.
Yes, that's kind of how they enter a room. First the honeysuckle, then a physical or visible presence.
Okay.
Makes her very jumpy in the spring.
Okay, so other than that scent, you don't remember anything from your Durance about any consistent physical appearance they might have. They could show up in any physical form, walking typewriter, anything, but you'd always smell honeysuckle.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the one other thing I'd add to how, that Durance began is I just revised what I came up with earlier a little to say, that the choreographer, was teaching her this dance, which it turned out opened the way to Arcadia.
Oh, okay. That's perfect. What was the name of the dance? Do you remember?
Let's go with, the ground breaks open. It involved a lot of stamping and so forth. And then it did. She thought it was metaphorical, but it was not.
So if we happen to see this show up again, or maybe you recognized it somewhere, like it would be very reminiscent of like the Stomp musical. Lots of hard impact stuff. Like
that, but more of a, if that's Allegro, this is a little slower, right? So big stomps with bigger pauses and rests in it.
Okay.
But I like where you're going with that.
Okay. So, all right, and let's come back around now to Dupool. Who's your business partner, employer? Who is this other changeling?
So as Shiloh, I work for Beck and Call, who is the fairest spring, and he's a renovation salesman. So yeah.
It is always amazing to me just how consistent everybody makes those NPCs. Like, there's nothing on there other than a picture, but like Beck and Call is always like some sort of like, sneaky salesperson type.
I mean, his name is Beck and Call, and he's got this swoosh of blonde hair.
Yeah, the swoosh must be what pushes it, I think.
I have a couple of other things.
Sure.
One of them is it doesn't quite fit into Entanglements, but I mentioned that I left my Arcadia. I escaped through the hedge when another changeling was present. Will, are you okay if I make that Jane?
Sure, absolutely.
So I think that Jane, so like I said, my keeper likes to show off her possessions. And I think that Jane's keeper came to observe and to see everything, and brought Jane along because you record things. Is that right?
Yes.
So you were recording all of this, and you had an interest in leaving the hedge?
I think yes, sure, yeah. I mean, we all kind of did at this point, right?
Well, I didn't really consider it until I met you. And then I think you basically said, you made your wishes known, and it was like, oh, that is an option. Let's see if we can do that.
I think I started asking pointed questions of you when the keepers' backs were turned and their eyes were elsewhere.
Yeah. Observing other fantastic things. Thank you.
Okay, I like that. Okay, Will, did you have anything else you'd like to add as far as helping us understand Immortal Jane and kind of where they are?
I guess I clarify the ambition a bit. She wants to be she wants to be a diplomat and a peacemaker. She wants to be the voice that rings out and the hand raised in stillness that quiets the bustling room and the argument.
Okay, all right. I think that gives me something to go on. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to come down to take a look at our rival mechanics for each of the playbooks, and then take a look at your entanglement choices. Generally, you would choose two out of the two out of those two lists. I'm letting you pick two regular entanglements if you're not interested in doing a romantic one. But so feel free to make your two entanglements any of those out of that list, or make up your own. Generally, each entanglement should have one PC and one NPC in it, if at all possible, if it makes sense. So kind of have that in your minds. We're looking at about 9:10 right now. That puts us roughly an hour in. So if folks are comfortable with that, I'd kind of take this opportunity to give us like a quick, maybe 5-minute break. Everybody get up, stretch the legs, get a drink, do all that other stuff, and then be back at, say, about 9:16 Eastern time. Is that good for everybody?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll see everybody back at 9:16. Okay, we're back from our break. I'd like to point out something that I did not point out initially, is that we are operating with safety tools in this game. On our character keeper, which is the online document we use to maintain the character sheet so that everybody can access their character and list their moves and things like that. We have a separate tab on that sheet to detail our lines for the campaign, which are things that we don't want to have happen in the campaign ever. We have veils, which are things that we don't mind having happen, but we don't want to actively go through them on screen. So those things can occur, but we will not delve deeply into them. We will acknowledge that they happened, and we'll fade to black and move on to the next scene. And wishes, which is my addition to this particular list of things, is things we really want to see happen. And that can include, the list we have going right now is seasonal court politics. And we have the lurking threat of the keepers. We have suspicious mortals, and we have Fey Court adjacent drama. So all of those things are things that I'm really interested in seeing happen too, so that works out great. And our current list of lines, which will certainly may expand as we go along, but the initial list, and some of these are mine, some of these are from the different characters. We will not have any sexual assault. There will be no child abuse, no peril to pregnant women or infants, and no domestic abuse. Our current veils, right now there looks like I think there's only one on the list, which is consensual sex, that will be our fade to black on the television screen. If folks decide that's something they want to do, we'll have that thing start. We'll have the initial kissing, making out stuff, and then fade to black. Next scene, and things will go. The story will move on from there with that thing having occurred. Now, does anyone have any questions for me about the safety tools or my little addition to those safety tools, the wishes tab, before we move on?
I feel like this is the intuitive way that it works, but just to have said it out loud, I assume that kind of lines and veils supersedes wishes, right? Like if there's something that someone wishes for, but somebody else is like, that's a line, then clearly the line, takes the precedence there. Yeah.
I tried to make that clear with the lines, the little highlight on the lines part is red. So red line, no. Veils is orange, kind of a warning. And then wishes is green for green light. Yes, that's my color coding system for that. So that's exactly what I meant by it. So I hope that I didn't confuse that too much for anybody.
Oh yeah, that seemed to be the intuitive way. I just wanted to have said it out loud.
Okay. And let's see. Now, getting back to getting to know our characters a little bit more, the next portion here of our character creation is each character gets to pick a rival. That is another NPC that has some rival-like relationship with you. Each playbook kind of has a drop-down list of available rivals and the reasonings behind those. So, like, just if you'd like to go into who your rivals are, we'll sort of go around the screen again. And now that we've come back from the break, because of the different order that people signed in on, the order is going to be completely different on my screen as I go clockwise. So everybody be ready. We're switching things up. So the first person on my list now, since we've been back, will be Steven, telling us about the rival of his character, Dewpool Morning.
Nice. My rival is Ashwine, the torchbearer elemental of winter, who knows more about the vanishing of my friend than they've admitted. My friend is Mr. Pinch, who is a smoke elemental of autumn, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, a smoke scene elemental is
Yeah.
his name here. Yeah.
Yep. So that is excellent. So as I understand your entanglement, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting it, Mr. Pinch has gone missing.
Yes.
Okay. And you believe that Ashwine knows more about the vanishing of your friend than they will let on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's a great setup to start with. Ticking around clockwise to get into our next character's rival. Leah, could you tell us about Silicate's rival?
Yeah, so I have, hey, sweetie girl, Sarah No Tears, a physical wizard of winter who uses your dreams to traverse the freehold.
Oh, I can see why that would make a rivalry. That's a total jerk thing to do.
Well, yeah, and she's basically, I think, my character isn't aware of any, like, larger or deeper or more nefarious purpose she may have, though I, as player, am not ruling them out. But, Silicate finds this unbelievably annoying because it's basically joyriding, right? And, she leaves all my thoughts in a mess when she passes through. She's very inconsiderate. And she's not even interested in things that I think are most interesting. It's like every time she goes tearing through, I just wind up angrier and angrier at her.
Now, when she goes through your dreams, like, is she using this to physically travel, or is she using your dreams to get into the dreams of someone else in the freehold? Like, how is she using your dreams for physical travel, like a dream walk to access the hedge and move around that way, or is she just using your dreams as like an aromantic bridge to get to somebody else's dreams?
I think
Like,
more the latter, and it's kind of insulting also because, like, sometimes she's breezing through because she considers it a shortcut.
So she's
lack of personalness about this that's insulting.
So really, they've said Sarah is basically just sort of almost like if you were at a bar standing next to someone, Sarah is now that person who is just basically sort of shouldered their way in between you and the other bar stool at the bar.
Yeah, that, and like when you keep finding like kids in your pool at night as a homeowner, and or worse, like your neighbor has the pool and the kids are constantly walking across your backyard to get to it.
Okay, I see how that is, and I kind of hate Sarah already. We'll see how that plays out. Okay, going around clockwise on my screen now. That will bring me to Will. Will, can you tell me about Immortal Jane's rival?
There's my mute for this. You're muted for this for the night. It turns out my rival is also Ashwine, who humiliated me before the court. Ashwine is tumultuous and volatile where I am still and stately, and that meant that while I was still sort of finding my footing in the court, he was able to run rings around me in a rather public argument.
Okay, so we've established that Ashwine is definitely going to be a focal point here, because we've got two people who hate Ashwine, or at least dislike Ashwine intensely. So, all right. So just so I make sure I have the right picture in my head, like in this court humiliation situation, Ashwine is, would you say Ashwine is the more like smooth and animated talker, and that's what allowed them to kind of get the better of you in that public situation, because you're not used to having to like respond in real time to things like that?
I think he had more connections and he had done more legwork than I had. We were on separate positions regarding a court decision, and so I was advocating for the court to do one thing, and he basically laid out all of my my positions and contacts that I had assembled laboriously, and it was like, and was able to just basically refute or rebut each of them or cause them to retract their support. And so it was basically, I didn't have enough of a network, and he just sort of flipped all my tables over.
Okay, so he came in and he had all the dirt on everybody to make them basically bend over backwards to make you look bad. Was that kind of the setup? Like he knew enough about everybody else to basically make them squirm enough to where he could win the argument over. Okay.
Right, and enough, and you know, he'd been able to get to people to the degree that they withdrew their support or went into hiding or.
Okay. Now, is this a like a thing where he just had more time with everybody? Like he had been in this court scene longer than you had, or do you think it's just he has a natural knack for doing these sorts of things?
More the former, but it's almost like he had a grudge in the matter. Like he hammered down doors as if his life depended on it. And I feel like there was a core of animosity in there, and that the degree to which he pushed himself to collect all this information against me was just sort of outrageous.
Now, did this question have to do with any, like a particular issue that you think you might want to have crop up again? Like, is this, do you think this might be something that you would like, that particular situation? Would you like that? Is that something you'd like to add to the wishes list and make sure we kind of come in and address during the campaign? Kind of see how that plays out ultimately. Like maybe he was mad at you about it and opposed you for the sake of opposing you, when actually you had a really good idea, and and the refusal of the courts to adopt that idea is going to come back to bite them ultimately, kind of situation. Is that something you'd be interested in seeing, or do you think it was basically just an inconsequential, like petty annoyance, and it's just something you want to have as background for what you do against him later?
I have two ways I could play that, and I'm curious what people think. One is that the argument that we got over was based on the Winter Court annexing a particular part of the city, or building out their presence in a particular part of the city, or some other focal point in dealing with mortals. And it turns out that I stepped on Ashwine's toes, and that he had a particular mortal or group of mortals that he was protecting. And so that may come up again. The other idea is if Dupool and I escaped from Arcadia together, and Ashwine is both of our rivals, is there something that we did while we were escaping that earned both of us his enmity? Or is there something is there something from before our escape? Well, or is there something about? Yeah, I guess my question there is could he be involved in our escape in a way where our escaping left him in a bad position, or?
I was going to ask, was he supposed to escape with you and you left him behind?
Ooh, that's good.
That is very good. I mean, I love it. I love it when the bad guy has an understandable motivation to hate you. Like that's good. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely down with that if you're interested in pursuing that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Stephen, do you think on Dupool's side of things, do you think that's a reasonable setup to have? Are you comfortable with that? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. All right.
I think from Dupool's perspective, it's a big misunderstanding. He didn't even consider that Ashwine wanted to leave. And then, basically whenever the possibility came up again, it was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And we left and made it out, and Ashwine was left behind. It was like, but I was supposed to go with you.
And the thing that's funny about this to me is if Ashwine still got out first, like because of the way the hedge works, like time is weird in Arcadia, time is strange in the hedge. Like even though you guys actually left first, maybe Ashwine got back to Earth first, but maybe he got back messy and that made him
chip
angry.
on his shoulder.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Would that be something you guys would be comfortable with?
Yeah, and his escape was painful, emotionally, physically.
Here's the other question: whose keeper was he with? Do you think he was with Dupool's keeper, or do you think he was with your keeper, Will? What do you think? Was he part of Jane's keeper's entourage when they visited, or do you think he was part of Dupool's keeper space, the Sands? Do you think he was part of the Sands, or do you think he was part of the grotto?
Stephen, do you have a space for Ashwine?
What do you mean? Do I have a space?
Like, can you sort of see what role he would play in your Durance?
Sure. I think Ashwine was actually there. He is a torchbearer elemental. I think he was there actually to light the way to the display of the precious objects. So I think that he was literally a torchbearer. He was literally the, I'm here to shine the light on these fantastic things, and resented it because he wasn't the precious thing himself.
I like that.
Nice.
I do definitely like that. Okay. See, Will, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your rival before we move on to see what Thistledown has for his rivalry? Okay. All right. Thistledown. Alexi, tell us about your rival.
Mine is nice and simple. Hopscotch Takebacks, Grifter Wizened of Autumn, secretly called the cops on you. Hopscotch Takebacks, he thinks he's such a big shot. He thinks he's so smooth because he can grift and con things out of people. So we had what I thought was a gentleman's bargain to compete to steal a particular artifact. Him with his social engineering, me with my sheer thievery. And he went and called the authorities on me, which was not sporting and quite petty, I might add. So yeah, I am unhappy with Hopscotch Takebacks and his unsportsmanlike conduct.
What did it take for you to get away?
I think there was a whole chase through the park, with me kind of using a mix of thiefy stealth skills and just being a fey beast to skulk and lurk and set my pursuers at odds.
Did it take you back to your durance?
It's not fun being chased around. I don't do this for amusement.
Okay, so I'm looking at hearing that Hopscotch is basically, he's one of those guys who takes every little grift super seriously, maybe. And so he was perfectly, in order to win this bet, even though it might have been, like a gentleman's wager, just like something silly and inconsequential when it comes to changelings. He still had to win it, and he had to get the mortal authorities involved, which is always messy. And
oh yeah,
generally, I would think it would be frowned upon in the court to basically call the mortal authorities in on what is essentially a changeling matter.
Yeah, I think I was unable to prove that it was him, but I know that he did it.
Gotcha. All right, so you've got some nice little hooks that you'd like to get into Hopscotch, I'll wager. At the very least, you'd like to get him back in some sort of very humiliating way. If not,
that would be nice.
Okay. All right. Why do you think that winning that particular bet was so important to him? Like, is it just generally he's that way, do you think? Or was there something about the bet with you? Was it something about you in particular?
Oh, he's jealous. He's stung by my skills, and so he had to best me even by cheating.
I have to ask, was it about winning the bet, or did he only propose the bet so he could call the cops on you?
That's a really good question. I think Thistledown is contemplating that.
I could see that going in a way, and that might kind of highlight whether it's the bet that he was really interested in winning, or whether it was Thistledown he really, really wanted to get into trouble. Either one of those could go, and maybe Thistledown isn't sure. So that maybe we can leave that part open.
I'm up to play to find out.
There we go. I like that. Okay, so we're now back around to going into the next step in our character interactions, which is entanglements. Each player has 2 entanglements. The presumption on the character keeper and in the basic rules is that you will have 1 normal entanglement, which is one messy connection to 2 other characters, and 1 romantic entanglement, which is a romantically messy attachment to 2 other characters. And so each playbook has a list of suggested regular entanglements and romantic entanglements to choose from. You would pick 1 of each, or if you're not interested in a romantic entanglement, you would just pick 2 normal entanglements. You can pick from the list on your character keeper sheet, or you can make up your own. And we'll sort of go in the same order around so that folks can lay out who they are going to choose. And let's see. Now things have shifted around again because I think Alexi went, for some reason, Zoom likes to switch things around as soon as someone goes off camera. Okay, we'll go back around. I think, if I remember right, Stephen was our first one in the list. So, Stephen, would you like to tell us about your first entanglement, your first entanglement that you picked, and if you have an idea as to who you think PC-wise and NPC-wise you'd like to be involved in that, or if you just want to throw it out to the table and see who's interested in being a part of the glorious mess that is your life. So,
I'd like to basically pitch something, but I'm pointing 2 other characters at each other. So I've kept Thistledown's secret about what they did to Switchback. Why? Silicate Switchback would be sad at the loss of her favorite work of art, as Thistledown has sold it to his quartz prince for favor. So this would also be her quartz prince. Are you guys okay if I point you at each other?
I like that.
I'm totally open to it. It might tie in nicely to a entanglement of mine.
Fantastic. Okay.
Sorry, I muted myself. Stephen, what do you want to pick a romantic entanglement for Dupool, or do you want to pick another regular entanglement?
So I'm not sure. So I don't have another entanglement picked out yet. I was thinking either after everyone goes around, maybe something will stand out to me, or maybe during play.
Okay, sure, we can do that. We'll come back. We'll do it this way. Everybody will pick their first entanglement, and then we'll come back around and pick the second. And that way, that'll give you some time to think it over. And if you still kind of want to see how things play out, and maybe think about it between now and the next session, or just pick it out as we play, that's going to be fine too. All right. So we'll go around, and I think the next person in my list then would be, was originally Leah. So Leah, would you tell us a little bit about the first entanglement for Silicate Switchback?
Yeah, there are a bunch of fun ones here. All right. And these could be PCs or NPCs, right? Or a mix, just double check.
Yeah,
right.
Generally you want a mix of them. You want like person 1 to be an NPC, person 2 to be a PC, or person 1 to be a PC and person 2 to be an NPC. Kind of mix and mush them if you can, or you can make them all PCs. That's fine too.
Yeah, I think let's go with person blank. My court superior believes I'm in the service of person 2 from a rival court. Is it true? And I'm just double checking what courts everyone else is in for a moment. Yeah, I think I want to point the second half of that at Immortal Jane. And let's see, I'm looking for a fun autumn person. Oh, yes. Yes.
So who is this Prince of Autumn? Or it might not be the prince. It could just be some random officer in the court that's currently your
Lean and
superior.
hungry Mike.
Okay, perfect. Now, when you says your court superior, is he like intermediate hierarchy superior, like middle management type court office, or do you think Lean and Hungry Mike is the prince at this point? Which would you prefer?
I am here for Prince Lean and Hungry Mike.
Okay, so I'm going to note that on the NPC tab. So we have had Lean and Hungry Mike designated as the prince.
I'm just so into that character concept. So Prince Lean and Hungry Mike is suspicious of me. And, I think, I said earlier that my character is not as into court politics. I think, unfortunately, has been so not into court politics that people have started talking about, like, oh, what is it she's up to? Clearly there's some kind of long thing she's running here, which is, and then very difficult to like convince anyone you're not doing.
Well, and plus Wizened, like, they like to plan, they like to scheme, right? That's the stereotype. So
can't accept, it's not my primary interest. So I think part of how this has manifested itself is that Lean and Hungry Mike is both suspicious of me, but constantly having conversations about the Winter Court and about Jane, where whatever I say is like, I see we understand each other. And it's perplexing to me. I don't know how to get myself out of this hole that I myself did not dig.
Oh, those make for the best ones. Jane, is that a cool thing for you? All right. So
I have other reasons I'm attached to the Autumn Court. So absolutely.
All right. So we've got that entanglement for for Silicate. Now, Jane, I think you would be our next person in my original turnabout. What would be your first entanglement?
All right. Let's make this a romantic entanglement. I long for Spinning Ginny, a Fate Spider Fairest of Autumn. and she's sort of in an oracular position in that court. I don't know if what I have is a professional infatuation or a romantic love, but it's a pretty heavy crush, and I've been trying to connect with Spinning Jenny for a while, but court politics and the vagaries of mistrust between the courts has meant that I simply cannot get in a room with her.
So the entanglement states that they're in a relationship with someone who is your friend. Who is that other person?
I think this one's person one knows about my thwarted desire for person two.
Well, if I'm reading, oh wait, I might be looking on the wrong thing. Hold on just a second. Let me, there we go. Yeah, I'd accidentally clicked over to the wrong tab. Okay, let me page down to where that one is. Sorry about that.
No problem. I think I did actually, I think I did start with the wrong entanglement text, but so I have a thwarted desire for Spinning Jenny, and I would give Silicate Switchback first refusal on being the one who knows about the thwarted desire.
See,
and
Leah,
ask
what
if
do you
you're
think?
keeping.
Yeah, I'm up for that. Is that something I figured out or you told me?
Well, I think I may have been injudicious about the leading questions I asked about Spinning Jenny's role in the court and her entourage, and you probably pieced it together. My question is, are like, I might have even broken down and tried to get you in my confidence about it, which would probably make Lean and Hungry Mike suspicious.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And then I've got the question, am I keeping quiet about this? Did you ask me to?
Yes.
Then I think mostly yes. But, you know, I've been trying to put our two complications together here, you know, indicate in my confusing conversations with Prince Lean and Hungry Mike that, you know, there might be an opportunity for a liaison of some sort. Just because if he's going to take weird hints for everything I say about Winter anyway, I'm trying to see if I can get you two in the same room.
And I did not ask you to pledge not to tell anyone. I left plenty of loopholes. Like I wasn't explicitly doing anything binding, and so you may have been able to rationalize your way out of it.
Yeah, you know, I think you know, I've definitely been talking up reasons you two should meet to the prince, though he may think this is more about politics than kissing.
Okay, that sounds great to me. It sounds like we've got a good recipe for a whole lot of drama between autumn and winter. I like that already. Okay, so I think that brings us around to Thistledown Susurrus and their first entanglement. Is it going to be a romantic or a normal entanglement that you pick for your first one?
Let me start with this general one. It tracks with a lot of stuff we've already established. So I got drawn into a secret crime against my friend Silicate Switchback by Wyndham Wales. So I think that this was a like test of loyalty sort of thing, where I had to steal a prized object from Silicate. I'm totally open to your suggestions about what that stolen item was, Leah. But Thistledown stole this basically because Wyndham, you know, my Durance mate who helped me escape was hinting, you know, I think Prince Lean and Hungry Mike would really like this, you know, particular art piece, and then I got drawn in to stealing this from a friend, and I feel bad about it. And I told Dupool because I knew Dupool wouldn't tell you because Dupool hates making people sad. So I took him into my confidence about it, but I feel pretty torn up.
Okay, so first of all, you're a jerk, and second of all, I think just thinking out like what kind of art my character might be attached to. It's a discarded sketch from an artist whose trash I used to take out.
Nice. So a real original. You can't find this in a museum anywhere piece.
Exactly. It might be a study for what's becoming a famous work.
Yes. Well, sorry about stealing that from you.
You don't sound very sorry.
I mean, I do love a challenge, so I feel like proud of myself for how well I pulled it off. Just bad about the fact that I stole it from my friend and then told a different friend, knowing that the secret would probably weigh on him too.
Yeah, it's a real tour de force of thievery to find a way to sneak into a house where you're welcome because you're a friend and you're trusted there.
I did it in a really sneaky way, though. I hope you're giving me that credit. Like I was taking like big, exaggerated, tiptoey steps.
Yeah, you thought it was just a joke. You're like, he's just, he's just doing that thing where he pretends to sneak around. It's not a big deal. He's just going to the bathroom. He'll be back in a minute.
Was the sneaky part that you actually replaced it with something that looks close?
Right, because it's a secret crime. Yeah, I must have swapped in something that isn't obviously not the thing.
So if it was a painting, you took a photograph of the painting, and then
It was a sketch, I think. So probably I worked hard to like produce the best forgery of the sketch that I could before making the swap.
Could this be basically?
My only other question is, do you think your version of it is better?
Well, I couldn't make it too much better, or else you would see that you'd see the swap had happened. But it's hard to resist leaving a little calling card.
Okay, so that I like that. All right, so we'll tick back around now, I think, to Dupool Morning and Dupool's second entanglement. Stephen, you think you're ready to pick a second entanglement now, or you still want to hold off and maybe let that one percolate until next session or beyond?
No, I think I'm pretty good with it.
Okay.
However, I'm kind of breaking the rules because my first entanglement pointed two PCs at each other. My second entanglement involves two NPCs. I keep going back and forth between Ashwine and Mr. Pinch. Why are both of them bad for me? Well, Ashwine is my rival and has ill will toward me for some reason, and Mr. Pinch is just too flighty and brings out bad aspects of me.
And has disappeared mysteriously.
And has disappeared. I liked that one simply because I liked pointing, the missing one and the one who knows why they're missing at each other with me. I'm like, that sounds good.
Okay, so basically you this is the romantic entanglement. So you're sort of you're interested in both Ashwine and Mr. Pinch, and not only are both of them bad for you, but they also apparently have their own trouble between the two of them.
Well,
beyond simply you, maybe.
So what I imagine is that, I'm kind of flirty with Ashwine, and Ashwine, lashes out towards me. I'm like, oh, that's painful. And then I've flitter back and forth back to Mr. Pinch, and Mr. Pinch and I are just a bad influence on each other, and we just exacerbate each other's flighty natures. And then Mr. Pinch is gone, and I go back to Ashwine. He seems to know something about it, but I'm not sure why. Maybe Ashwine made Mr. Pinch disappear because he wants me all to himself.
Oh, so maybe him being snappish and mean before is just like the sort of classic grade school mean person thing.
Maybe.
Oh. Or he could just be a jerk.
Well, that's dangerous. Yeah, I don't know.
I like the idea that when the air touched elemental and the smoke scene elemental get together, it's just like too nebulous for for words.
Right.
They have a built-in veil over any sexual activity.
Easily, it's right there. Okay, so I think that gives us a good idea for a dew pool. I think, Leah, are you ready for to pick Silicate's second entanglement? And if so, what would that be?
Let's see. Dum-dum-dum, dum-dum-dum. I'm just looking at the NPCs tab and mulling which one I'm most interested in pulling from here. Yeah, let's go with. I think this may involve two NPCs also, but I think I injured rather Beck and Call in a Fury, which teed off Songbird Rex, Long Lost Beast of Summer. To bring some summer energy in here, and what made me fly into a Fury? Beck and Call wanted to buy my sketch, like that I found and I valued, and wanted to buy it for me for like petty favors, and it was very insulting. It's not the kind of thing I want to think of putting a value on or trading at all. And I kind of lashed out at him a bit, and there may have been like some explosions, just a couple, until Songbird Rex fanned them away with her titanic, horrifying wings, and they're mad at me.
Sorry about that. So Beck and Call and Songbird Rex apparently have at least some sort of friendly relations, if I'm understanding the entanglement language correctly. Is that what you meant to imply? Like those two have at least some modicum of friendship for Songbird Rex to sort of step in and get mad at you for injuring Beck and Call?
Yeah, and in fact, I'll go so far as to say it's a romantic relationship they have.
Okay.
That slightly sleazy looking swooshy hair guy and just an enormous bird.
Yes, Songbird Rex. Like if you look at that picture, like he's some sort of like dragon bird creature. Like,
oh wow! Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so that's a heck of a good interesting relationship. Not
were you giving Songbird Rex she/her pronouns, Leah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Note that, because I'm not sure if they actually have pronouns listed on the NPC tab or not.
Yeah, I feel like she's very protective of Beck and Call, who is himself constantly getting into scrapes, possibly because he's got Songbird Rex to back him up.
Okay, so yeah, just note Songbird Rex's pronouns, because they're I don't know that I don't think there's ever been a presumption as to what pronouns Songbird would use, because it's not noted on the character keeper. So just plug that in next to their name, if you would, so that I can keep that in mind when we bring them on the screen, because I can't not bring them on the screen. That is one of the coolest pictures in here.
Oh yeah, I've done it. Yeah, I'm picking NPCs a lot by just like awesomeness of name or awesomeness of photo, and there's still a bunch to choose from.
Okay, so let's see. All right, I think our next one would come back around to Immortal Jane. Which entanglement did you pick for your second? Did you go with another general, or another romantic, or what do you think?
If this works for you, Alexi, I have been ordered by my courtly superior, Abyssinial Max, the Houseclaw Beast of Winter,
nice,
to undercut you.
To undercut me?
Yes. Now,
what did I ever do to Abyssinian Max?
That's a good question. I mean, he's got sort of a cat thing. He's got some sort of a cat she thing going on, and then you're Vulpine. So
You think it's just a dog kingdom versus cat kingdom rivalry? Man, wow. Well, I'm fine with you taking that entanglement. I will Thistledown will have to think a little about how his fellow beast has become his foe.
Also, what makes me reluctant to do this? Because I mean, I could make the argument that I'm trying to get in good graces with the Autumn Court to get closer to Spinning Jenny, but is there another reason that I might be reluctant to undercut you in the Autumn Court?
Yeah, we're motley mates. Probably some aspect of what we've sworn to each other is to not not go around undercutting each other.
Not go around betraying each other's trust.
Yeah, that would be wrong.
That seems quite fair. I am curious, though, maybe we can find out in play what Max has against you? What sort of either beast-seeming related or outside court reason he might have for wanting to put a spoke in your gears?
Yeah, happy to find that out.
Okay.
Are you
All right.
thinking that Abyssinian Max might be the Prince of Winter then, if he's the superior that's giving you this order?
I think so. I think he is the one holding court in Winter. So he is the local prince.
Great.
Okay. Jane, do you have anything else you want to add to the entanglement, or is that you think that's enough to go on right now?
I think that's enough to go on right now. I'm mostly in a play to find out what happens position regarding that.
Okay, excellent. And I think that brings us back around to Thistledown and Thistledown's second entanglement. Alexi, do you have something ready for us?
Yeah, I've got a romantic entanglement to throw out there, which is, I know person one desires me, but my actual object of affection loves them. And I was thinking maybe that's, I know Spinning Jenny desires me, but my actual object of affection, Immotile Jane, loves them.
And there we have it.
And of course, we've established that crush that Jane has already, and I think the deliciousness is that Jane is also trying to undercut me for unrelated reasons.
And feels bad about it. Maybe I'll feel less bad about it as time goes on.
I don't know. I mean, I feel conflicted about this web of affection that we're tangled up in.
So I have the follow-up question on that is, what makes rejection difficult? Like, how do you see that coming down for Thistledown, Alexi? Like, does that mean the rejection is difficult as to rejecting Spinning Jenny outright, or is or is it that you're having difficulty dealing with Immotile Jane's rejection of you? Like, which end do you think that's on?
I think I haven't been like explicit enough about my affections to have been rejected by Immotile Jane. I think I'm feeling out though to what extent it is possible to woo her when Immotile is right in her name, and her solid statuesque demeanor is what makes her both so attractive and so unattainable. I feel it's hard to simply reject Spinning Jenny because she's the only person I feel like is a strong ally in the Autumn Court since I've cooled on Wyndham Wales after he had me steal that sketch from my friend. Hopscotch Takebacks is just terrible, just the worst. And Mr. Pinch is gone. So we're like, I'm running short on allies, and it feels like a bad move to push away someone who actually likes me. That's my thought there.
Okay, I like all of that. I think that's going to work out well. Let's see. All right, now here's the second part of the entanglements questions. One of your entanglements, this is dealing with the debts part of the game. One of the entanglements should come with a debt owed to you, and one of the entanglements means that you owe a debt to one of the other characters in there. And like each of you to kind of give me which entanglement has you owing a debt, like emotionally, physically, however your character interprets it, to one of the other characters involved in that entanglement. And likewise, how the other one means that you are owed a debt by one of those two characters involved in your entanglement. And we'll kind of go back around and lay that part out so that we know like which way the debts go, because there is a mechanic for cashing in debts and for refusing to honor a debt. So that will kind of give you guys some additional fictional and game and system related ammo if you need to make use of that in your social interactions. There's lots of cool things you can do with debts regarding into NPCs, and there's even a few cool mechanics between PCs when it comes to honoring and refusing to honor debts. So back around to Stephen, Dewpool Mourning. Which entanglement do you think involves Dewpool actually owing a debt to one of the other characters?
So I think my romantic entanglement is the one that so this is 2. Dewpool owes a debt to Silicate Switch because he knows her sketch has been replaced.
Legit.
And I think she knows there's a debt there. She's not sure why.
Maybe it's something like Dewpool acts a little bit extra deferential to her, like when she suggests things, like he backs her up more than you would normally expect, that sort of thing. Like there's definitely some sort of emotional jump in that Dewpool is doing that shows that there's an existing debt there, but
right.
She doesn't know exactly what it is.
I think as changelings we can feel those debts where they happen. Yeah.
You feel that there's a mystical heft there that you guys sense that normal mortals don't. So you have a harder time ignoring these things. Okay, so so how is Dewpool owed a debt through that other entanglement, and who owes it to them, do you think?
I think that Ashwine owes me a debt. And I'm not sure why, but this happened whenever Mr. Pinch disappeared.
Okay, I like that. And that probably makes Ashwine extra resentful.
Of course. And this is one of the reasons for that resentment, because he knows I have a debt, that I'm kind of holding over him. And this is how I know he knows something about Mr. Pinch disappearing.
Right. You've got that sense because you've got that debt. I like that. Okay. All right. And Leah, tell us about which entanglement has given Silicate a debt, and which entanglement has caused Silicate to owe a debt.
Yeah. So I think I owe a debt to Songbird Rex for, stopping the fight eventually for like not savaging me, since I'm stronger than Beck and Call, but not than Songbird Rex. And let's see, I'm owed a debt. I think I'm owed a debt by Immotile Jane, just because our friendship is causing all this suspicion and confusion about my motives in the court. Does that work for you?
Okay. Yeah, both of those sound good to me, and I think Will had indicated that Jane is cool with the debt structure, so that works. And speaking of Jane, Jane, what are the debts to and from Modal Jane as a result of their entanglements?
Let's see. Silicate Switchback, can you see a reason why you would owe me a debt in this situation? Because it seems like I've been imposing on you to try and find out more about the Autumn Court. The only thing I can think of is that you've incurred some sort of debt just based on the tidbits you've let slip to Mike, but that feels a little soft to me.
I feel like it's possible we've wound up both owing each other debts, as like we've both become embroiled for each other in Autumn Court politics.
Okay, just sort of carving out that channel of communication.
Yeah,
at some expense both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and just to make things messier, I owe a debt to Abyssinian Max, because he provided me space in his court after I came out of the Hedge, and he's put effort into grooming me to take a larger role in the court, and he expects his commands to be carried out.
Okay, so he recognized talent quickly and pounced on that opportunity.
Quite.
Okay, I like both of those. All right, so Lexi, what are Thistledown's debts, and to whom are they owed, and from whom are they given?
All right, I think Wyndham Wales now owes me a debt because I stole from my friend, for some kind of weird autumn loyalty test thing he was setting up, and I think it's clear. I don't feel great about this, and he he owes me one for it, and then I think I owe a debt to Spinning Jenny for sort of leading her on, by not disabusing her of the the tangled nature of the entanglements that we're in.
Oh my God! And she could legit interpret that as being like you actually do have feelings for her because of the mystical relationship of the debt.
Debts are tricky, man.
Oh, this is a glorious mess you have given me. Okay. All right. So we've addressed our debts now. Make notes of those because you can use them to do fun stuff. Let me see here. Okay, our the next round of things that I will need to ask you guys, this will be you answering them as a group and as part of a group discussion, is going to be about the motley itself. We've gone about another hour. If folks would be comfortable, I'd like to take another 5-minute break here, and then when we come back, jump right into me asking you questions about the motley, how you guys came together, why you guys are together, and a few other like cool and interesting things that I like to know about motleys. And after the motley questions, we'll go into the city questions, which is where we want our city to be, what it's going to be like, what are some famous landmarks, where do you guys like to hang out, and all sorts of, and what other interesting things you'd like to have noted about the city and where it is and what its name is and all that sort of fun stuff. Okay, so if folks could come back at 10:25 Eastern time, we will start again and wrap up with all of the nice and juicy details about your motley and your city.